So, good morning everyone, especially to you ma'am. So, my name is Arvin Gibb Balbutin and we are the reporters in chapter 4.10 which is the fiscal policy from 1946 to present. Okay, so let's start. The impact of the war on the Philippine economy was effectively desperate as Manila, which is the capital, was razed to the ground, while the rest of the Philippines was relatively untouched. But the highly agriculture-based economy was disrupted. So sa time na to, in 1946, ang Manila, sila lang yung nasira, it's because sa war. Pero, yung mga kalapit bayan niya and the other parts of the country is hindi naman masyado naapektuhan. Pero ang number one na naapektuhan this time is yung agrikultura ng Pilipinas. So the next one. The United States may have declared the Philippines independent, but as the country needed rehabilitation funds from the United States, the dependency of the Philippines to the Americans was an opportunity to be taken advantage of the former colonial administrators. So sa time na to, remember 1946, July 4, 1946, that is the true independence of the Philippines against the Americans. Pero hindi pa yan agad-agad nawala ang mga Americans that time. Remember, meron pa tayong mga former colonial administrators that time dito sa Pilipinas. And which is, yun lang ang pag-asa ng Pilipinas, which is nakadepend pa tayo sa United States. Yun yung opportunity na makakuha ng advantage para makakuha rin sila ng solusyon about sa ating economy. The economic situation was so problematic that by 1949, there was a severe lack of funds in many aspects of governance, such as military and education sectors. No efforts were made to improve tax collection, and the United States advised the adoption of direct taxation. So, from 1946, so forward tayo 3 years to 1949, so merong lack of funds. So, syempre, yung Pilipinas is kabago-bago lang iniwan ng American. So syempre, yung Pilipinas is nag-start pa lang na mag-thrive. So syempre, marami tayong severe lack of funds in many aspects of governance. Meron sa military and education sectors, pero wala talagang action na ginawa para ma-improve ang tax collection. So anong ginawa ng United States? The administration of President Manuel Rojas declined the proposal because it did not want to alienate its allies in Congress. So ang ginawa ng United States, nag-advise sila ng adoption of direct taxation. Pero, kasi under ito kay Manuel Rojas So, Manuel Rojas declined the proposal. Why? It's because it did not want to alienate its allies in Congress. So, from the word alienate, ayaw niyang ihiwalay ang kanyang mga allies, kanyang mga kapwa Pilipino sa Kongreso. Okay, so let's move on. The impetus for economic growth came during the time of President Elpidio Quirino through the implementation of import and exchange controls that led to the import substitution development. So, impetus. So, nagkaroon ng movement sa economic growth sa time ni President Elpidio Quirino. So, President Elpidio Quirino is the president after Manuel Rojas. So, sa time niya, nagkaroon ng implementation ng import and exchange controls. So, it's because sa implementation nito, nagkaroon ng import substitution development. So, okay. Example. So, for example, tayong mga Pilipino, madalas tayo gumagamit sa pagluluto ng butter. So, remember, butter is not a product of the Philippines. So, mostly, kilala natin yan sa ibang bansa, ang butter. So, nag-i-import tayo ng butter galing ibang bansa. So, by the implementation of import and exchange controls, so nagkaroon ng substitution. So, instead na gagamit tayo ng butter, gumagamit na tayo ng margarine sa pagluluto, which is margarine is a substitute of butter. So, sa paraan na ganun, so, nagkaroon ng import substitution development. Mas natatangkilik yung sariling atin. Okay, next one. This policy allowed for the expansion of viable manufacturing sector that reduced economic dependence to the imports. New tax measures were also passed, which included higher corporate tax rates that increased twofold compared to 1948 the year when Quirino first assumed presidency. So, yung policy na yun, nagkaroon siya ng expansion sa manufacturing sector. So, saan yun siya naglilid? Nag-reduce ng economic dependence sa imports. Hindi na tayo nagde-depend sa mga import. Hindi na tayo nagde-depend sa ibang bansa, yung mga produkto na ini-import natin. So, ano pa? Nagkaroon din ng mga new tax measures were also passed. Kesa, ano pa, higher corporate tax rates that increased twofold compared to 1948. So, sa 1948, that was when Quirino nag-start yung kanyang presidency. So, that time is 1949. So, sa pag-start na nagkaroon ng impeto sa economic growth, mas siya ang corporate tax rates. So, nag-twofold. So, dumoble siya in 1949. Okay, so the next one. While succeeding presidencies of Magsaysay, Garcia, and Macapagal, who promised to study the tax structure and policy of the country through the creation of a tax commission in 1959 by means of Republic Act number 2211 to make way for what? A more robust and efficient tax collection scheme, post-war fiscal policy remained regressive, characterized by the overburdening of the lowest classes, while the landed elite who held business interests were in Congress to ensure that taxes would not be levied to them who belonged to the high classes. So, sa succeeding presidencies nila, Magsaysay, Garcia, and Macapagal, so sila na tong mga president after Quirino. So, sila yung mga president na nag-promise na studihan nila ang tax structure of the Philippines. By what? Tax Commission in 1959 under the Republic Act of 2211. Tapos, ano ba ang purpose nun? Para magkaroon ng matatag at efficient na tax collection at para magkaroon ng post-war fiscal policy and remain regressive. So sa time na to, nag-usad na naman ang tax ng Pilipinas, characterized by overburdening of the lowest classes. So lumaki na naman ang pasanin ng mga mabababang klase ng tao this time. So sila yung mahihirap. Tapos yung mga mayayaman this time, sila naman yung yung mga mayayaman this time na may mga interest sa business at negosyo. So, in-ensure nila na nasa Congress sila para walang maipataw na buwis sa kanila. Of the post-war republic also saw a rise in corruption. So, from 1959 to 1968, the Congress did not pass any tax legislation. So sa time na to, ang mga president that time is Carlos Garcia, Diosdado Macapagal, and the early years of Ferdinand Marcos. So despite important changes in the economy and the vested interest of Filipino businessmen in Congress would manifest in many instances, such as the rejection of taxes on imports. So indirect taxation still contributed to 3/4 of tax revenues of the Omnibus Tax Law in 1969. So ang Omnibus Tax Law, ito yung pinalaganap na tax law ni Ferdinand Marcos in 1969. It did not increase the ratio of income tax revenue. Yung collection naman ng mga taxes remained poor. Tax structure is still problematic and much of public funds were lost to corruption. So sa time na to, mas grabe ang corruption this time, which left the government incapable of funding projects geared toward development. So sa time na to, ang hina ng development ng Pilipinas. Bakit? Dahil may corruption na nangyayari. Kahit may Omnibus Tax Law of 1969, still yung tax structure is still problematic. Okay, so the next one. Under the Marcos authoritarian regime, the tax system remained regressive. So umusad na naman ang tax system. During the latter part of Marcos' years, so that was in 1981 to 1985, the tax system was still heavily dependent on indirect taxes, which made up of 70% of total tax collection. The tax system also remained unresponsive na naman. Taxes grew at an average annual rate of 15% and generated a low tax yield. Tax effort defined as the ratio between the share of the actual tax collection in gross domestic product and predictable taxable capacity was at low 10.7%. So, still, sa time na to, 70% ng tax collection natin is naka-depend sa indirect taxes. So, kahit tinaasan na yung annual rate na 15%, pero still, yung tax yield, yung nakokolekta is still the same. So, walang pagbabago kahit tinaasan na yung annual rate ng 15%. So, the next one. As Corazon Cujuangco Aquino took the helm of the government after the EDSA revolution, she performed the tax system through the 1986 Tax Reform Program. So, the aim was to improve the responsiveness of the tax system, promote equity by ensuring that similarly situated individuals and firms bear the same tax burden. Kasi remember, yung sa mga past years before nitong 1986, remember yung mga mahihirap, ang laki ng pasanin nila. Tapos yung mga elites that time, sila yung nasa kongreso, which is may mga interest sila sa negosyo that time, walang pinapataw na buwis sa kanila. So, it's very unfair. So, by the 1986 Tax Reform Program, so, ini-ensure dito na magkaroon ng same tax burden, mahirap man o mayaman. And the last one, improve tax administration by simplifying the tax system and promoting tax compliance. Yan. By 1986 Tax Reform Program, dito na rin nag-start yung pag-simplify ng tax system and pag-promote ng pagko-comply ng tax. Okay, the last one. A major reform in the tax system introduced under the term of Corazon Aquino was the introduction of the value-added tax. So, ito na, dito na, sa time ni Corazon Aquino, dito na nag-start yung tinatawag natin na VAT. Always natin na nakikita sa mga resibo natin. So, with the following features. Okay, the first one. Uniform rate of 10% on sale of domestic and imported goods and services and 0% on exports and foreign currency denominated sales. So, lahat may uniform na rate ng 10% yung imported goods and mga services natin. Then the next one, 10% in lieu of varied rates applicable to fixed taxes of 60 nominal rates. At in advance sales tax, meron din tayong tinatawag dito na tax on original sale, subsequent sales tax, compensating tax, miller's tax, contractor's tax, broker's tax, film lessors and distributors tax, excise tax on solvents and matches, and excise tax on processed videotapes. Okay, the third one, 2% tax on entities with annual sales or receipts of less than 5,200,000. So, ito na naman, sa resibo na naman ito nakikita. Okay, the next one. Adoption tax credit, method of calculating tax by subtracting tax on inputs from tax and gross sales. Okay. Second to the last. Exemption of the sale of basic commodities such as agriculture and marine food products in the original state. Price-regulated petroleum products and fertilizers. So, nagkaroon ng exemption rin sa sale ng basic commodities tulad sa ating agrikultura, sa mga isda, sa marine food products natin, sa kanilang sa kanilang original state. So, ang price-regulated ng petroleum products and fertilizers para naman sa ating mga magsasaka. And the last one, additional 20% tax on non-essential articles such as jewelry, perfumes, toilet waters, yacht, and other vessels for pleasure and sports. Kahit yung mga single motor ninyo, may additional 20% tax yan. So, that's it for my topic. And the rest will be explained by my partner, which is Imman Macapoli. So, thank you for listening.
Good day everyone, I am Lady Imman A. Macapoli and this is the continuation of my groupmate Arvin, Gibb, Balbutin report about fiscal policy from 1946 to present. So, sa first paragraph na to, sinabi na ang value-added tax ay nabuo noong 1986 and it started working noong 1988 at nakatulong ito sa government natin para makapag-collect ng money effectively. However, may new tax law ang in-introduce na nagbibigay ng exemption or meaning to say, may mga tao na na-exempted sa pagbayad ng taxes at nagdulot yun sa government para maging less dependable para sa kanila as a source of income ang value-added tax o VAT. Let's proceed naman sa pangalawang paragraph. Sa paragraph na to, sinasabi na along with the tax reform, nagkaroon din ng administrative reform. The government also improved how it operated. They restructured the Department of Finance and Bureau of Internal Revenue, which is yung BIR, to make the collection better. This included better audits, paggamit nila ng computers, and pag-reduce ng corruptions, which made people to trust BIR more. Because of this reform na nangyari noong presidency ni Corazon Aquino, the ability of government na mag-collect ng tax is nag-improve. So, nagdulot din to ng pagtaas ng tax efforts from 10.7% noong 1985 to 15.4% noong 1992. This means na they were collecting more money from taxes. During the administration naman ni Fidel Ramos noong 1992, naka-experience ang Philippines ng political stability mainly because si Fidel Ramos gumawa siya ng effort na makipag-unify sa other political groups at in-address niya din yung mga internal issues which help our economy to grow steadily. And noong 1997 naman, his government introduced a tax reform program na tinawag na Comprehensive Tax Reform Program. May apat ito na goal. Ang una is to make tax fair and simpler. And pangalawa naman is ayusin yung mga sira, mga loopholes para ma-reduce yung mga tax cheating. And then pangatlo is to make it easier for people na magbayad ng tax. Ang ginawa niya is tinaasan yung tax exemption and then binabaan yung may mga highest tax rates. And then pang-apat, better organized incentives from businesses that had cost our government a lot of money in the past. Noong 1997, binago ng government ang batas ng value-added tax o VAT. No, sa pamamagitan nito ng Republic Act 7716. Ang layunin nito is para mas mapalawak pa ang value-added tax at mas maraming produkto at serbisyo ang mapasok sa pagbubuwis. So, para naman hindi ito mabigat para sa mga sektor, gumawa rin sila ng exemption. So, ito yung features ng improved VAT law. So, ang una is restore the VAT exemption for all cooperatives, agricultural, electric, credit, or multipurpose and others, provided that the share capital of each member does not exceed 515,000 pesos. So, ang pangalawa naman is expanded the coverage of the term simple processes by including broiling and roasting, effectively narrowing the tax base for food products. Ang pangatlo naman is expanded the coverage of the term original state by including molasses. And panglima naman is more than 58,000 subject to adjustment using CPI, sale, information, printing, publication of books, and any newspaper. Sa pang-apat naman, binanggit ang mga exempted sa VAT. So, ang una is importation of meat. Ang pangalawa is sale or importation of coal and natural gas in whatever form or state. Ang pangatlo naman is educational services rendered by private educational institution duly accredited by the Commission on Higher Education o CHED. Ang pang-apat naman, house and lot and other residential dwellings valued at 51 million and below subject to adjustment using the Consumer Price Index o CPI. Ang panglima naman is list of residential units with monthly rental per unit if not more than 58,000 subject to adjustment using CPI. Ang panghuli naman o pang-anim, sale, importation, printing or publication of books or any newspaper. Pagkatapos ng maikling termino ni President Joseph Estrada noong 1998, ang pumalit sa kanya is si Vice President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo pagkatapos ng isa pang EDSA Revolution. So, noong president siya, nagkaroon ng malaking gastusin ng government kaya nagdulot to, pero hindi niya tinaasan yung collection ng buwis kaya nagdulot to siya ng kakulangan ng pondo mula 2002 to 2004. Kaya noong 2005, ipinasa ang expanded value-added tax under the Republic Act 9337. So, mas pinalawak to siya na VAT. dito yung pag-collect ng produkto ng enerhiya gaya ng carbon, langis at saka kuryente. Kaya noong February 2006, tumaas ang VAT mula 10% to 12%. Nung naging Pangulo naman si Benigno Aquino III, pinangako niya na walang maging bagong tax, pero i-a-adjust niya yung mga umiiral na tax gaya ng tinaasan niya yung buwis ng alak at saka sigarilyo under the Sin Tax Reform Republic Act 10351. So, ang layunin nito is yun nga para na din sa kalusugan ng publiko at saka kaayusan ng ating lipunan. So, dahil dito, tumaas din ang pondo ng Department of Health. Kaya mas marami pa yung nabigyan ng PhilHealth at tumaas din yung credit ratings ng ating bansa dahil sa reform na yun. Si Rodrigo Duterte naman bilang Pangulo, nangako siya ng reforma sa buwis. So, kasama na dito yung, particular na dito yung pagpapababa ng income tax dahil mas mataas ang buwis sa Pilipinas kaysa sa ibang bansa sa Southeast Asia. So, kasama na sa layunin ng reforma na yun ang pagpapababa ng VAT exemption at pagtataas ng excise tax sa petrolyo at saka sa sasakyan. So, ang layunin nito is para mas maparamdam pa sa Pilipino, lalo na sa may hirap na Pilipino, ang kaunlarang ekonomiko.